Okie dokie. So we're recording.
Oh,
um, I want to tell you my experience with Ashtyn, Tulip, Campbell, who is here with us. Ashtyn and I met online actually through our participation in a group with Shanti Zimmerman.
mhm.
And Shanti Zimmerman, I consider her a mentor. I That's what I use in terms of the word. And we did the clarity of boundaries. And Ashtyn, I had just had surgery, I think, and my foot was like where the
Yeah.
surgery is. Yeah. And Ashtyn was the first person that reached out for me and was having downloads, I guess, about what was happening to my foot. And she was suggesting things. And I thought, wow, who is this person? I just got your spirit right away. It was this caring, loving,
Mhm.
present, uh, I don't know. No one had surrounded me with that much love over that issue.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow. And ever since then, we've been having dialogues online through Ashtyn's. Ashtyn does some really amazing integrative work. So I'm hoping she's going to talk about that. And so anyway, our hearts, or I'm going to speak for myself, my heart is very, uh, it feels so full whenever I'm with Ashtyn, even online.
Mhm.
Here we are, and you can see, don't you see the light coming off of that woman? Anyway, I'm going to pass it over to you, Ashtyn.
Oh my gosh. In our interactions, Ida, I consistently have to pause to just receive, right? And like receiving earlier today, I've just been channeling for the last, like, I don't know how time is weird, right? It feels like I've been channeling for 4 hours. I don't know the actual time behind that.
Wow.
But I was channeling in, and the piece about receiving came up for me personally and how challenging that is. I mean, layers and layers, right? Years and years. There are layers behind receiving. And you give me such amazing opportunities to like fully receive because you offer the reflection of someone's full essence.
Oh, wow.
And this is this is what we've only spoken by text, right? About, which is being a seer of souls. And a seer of souls sees another and recognizes them as a seer of souls, right? And you are one of them. And so when I get to receive that, it's a really big deal because a lot of the time I'm offering that, but I am not necessarily able to be met by others who have that same skill set. But in your presence, I always get to receive that. And so I just pause and breathe it in.
Wow. I
Yeah.
can say that was beautifully expressed because that is what I feel in my heart too.
Mhm.
Like I receive, Ashtyn, like nobody else from you. Like nobody else. It's like putting on like well, I envision it as an indigenous blanket of like fur.
Mm, you are always tuning into some stuff. Every time we talk, I'm like, girl, you're bringing something through. Because I will tell you what, let me see if I can maybe even show you, right? Also, I'll tell you the connection of this. I do, and to bring integration into the conversation, because I'm all about integration, I do a lot of integrative parts work. I'm very attuned to my parts, and I can also pick up on other people's parts because I'm attuned to my parts. And a part of my process is to use this tangible physical world to allow myself to receive more of who I am, validated, right? Which is like similar to what you offer when you're a seer. You are validating and offering me my own essence. So it is being witnessed. So I like to provide that to myself. And one of the ways that I do that is through taking pictures of myself. And of course, some people can see this even as egotistical, right? But we're needing to dissolve some of these ideas about what is egotistical and what is actually validation of the self and the soul and the true power that each and every one of us uphold, while patriarchy tells me that we're much, much less over and over again.
Hallelujah.
Woo, woo! Praise. Preaching it. So this reflection of myself that I use through photography is to actually capture various aspects of myself so that I can receive them more. And as I receive them more, I see how they dance with these other parts of myself. And I'm talking about very human related parts, and I'm talking about multidimensional parts. I'm talking about past life parts, right? And so allowing all of that, the totality of all of that we have been, to integrate into our experience of ourselves and reception and receiving that all from ourselves. And so yesterday I took the opportunity of this beautiful scenery out at the bay and on a snowy day to take pictures. And what came through was this more masculine Viking essence that I have coming in and up and through me. And this is really important for me right now to share too, because a lot of people see me as a divine feminine embodiment and a reflection of the divine feminine. And it's really essential for me to clear up that in order for me to show up as that fierce feminine embodiment, it has required every step of the way my masculine counterpart internal to step alongside her. It's not possible for her to rise without him. And so again, this is very integrative, and this is how I view the world. So it was amazing for me to be able to start sharing with people, hey, this is actually some of the divine union work I do relative to my masculine aspects. And in taking those pictures, I had the Viking masculine in the snow come up. And this is a photo I have not shared on social yet, if you can see it.
Wow.
So that's the more masculine, Norwegian-like Viking essence.
I think you posted a picture, did you not? That said,
but not this one.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. So then this is what's so interesting is that I played around with it a little bit more. And what came through is a Native American aspect of myself. It's a multidimensional Native American part of myself, but it's also a part of a primal masculine essence that is both a guide to me, because I'm a guide to myself multidimensionally, but also like one that has lived on Earth as well, right? So I'm playing around with the exact same picture, and then this is what comes through.
Wow.
So this is the Native American essence.
You look like what I envision as an indigenous,
Right?
Wow.
So when you had, all of this kind of has come up because you said, what did you say? Something about maybe like enveloping in fur?
Yes.
And a Native American under Native blanket?
Yes.
And I'm like, girl, you're just picking up on what's in the space. You might not always know it, right? But every single time you do, I let you know how you're picking up it in the space. And I'm like, girl, let me tell you this and how it connects to my now moment. And this is something that's also very beautiful about you, Ida, that because of how you dance your seer abilities into the space, it allows for storytellers to tell their stories.
Wow. I find myself, if I let loose, I'm always telling stories. I shouldn't use always, sorry, but most often I'm telling stories. But I'm usually like Ashtyn in the work we do. I'm listening to other people's stories, right? It's what I'm accustomed to.
Yep.
So I don't know about you. This is leading to another thing. For a long time, I didn't insert myself in the space. Do you know, it comes from a family of so I'm one of 6 siblings. And having to give up my wants and needs for the all in that family, right?
Yes.
And being told I'm too much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and being muzzled. So I hate the whole mask thing because it's like it's a triggering.
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
so very cautious of not inserting myself into the space when I first started working. It was like it would be, you know how with Shanti's work, I really understood how we were focused on the other all the time before
Mhm.
ourselves, and
Right.
that it's a programming,
Yep.
and that we needed to turn that around and include ourselves. What a freedom that was for me.
Yes.
And I did that with you. I inserted myself in the space with you.
Mhm.
And that was all new kind of learning. And
Mm.
you know, there's still the old messages, right? Like, oh, step back, oh, be quiet,
Mhm.
oh, don't tell that story. Oh, you know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that inner critic programming is still there,
Mhm.
but it's really a comfort to be in sharing and inserting myself in a space with you.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. There's so much to this. I'm closing my eyes because I travel and I just like to really fully be present and receive, and I can tune into like threads so I can really like meet someone much deeper with my eyes closed.
Yeah, I get that. I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, and so like I'm just seeing this really beautiful dance that's happening for you and through you. Let's see if I can catch this here in actual word. But I'm like seeing you as a younger self and in your family dynamic that you were talking about being like like consistently in service to the
Yes.
family, and
Yes.
and also being neglected, being consistently in service to the
Yes.
family because it's like
Yes.
you're too much, and it's like actually you're asking too much of me, right? And then
Yes.
calling me not enough.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm seeing this like this thread, and I want to pull out the beauty of that, right? Because in our wounding, it's so easy to be like, ah, fuck. And then this adaptation came from this thing, and like I need to address this thing. But I want to just like pause into the beauty of it and the
Mm.
alchemical um,
Yeah.
essence that's behind that. And that actual essence comes through with what I was sharing with you when you show up in the space and ask these kind of questions and make these intuitive links, even when you don't know it, that really calls another person into like sharing more, which also means they're offering more.
Ah.
So as they're offering more, you're getting to actually receive, right? And
Mm.
they are too receiving from you through your service, which actually links back into how you were moving in your early on years in this dysfunctional family system. But now it's alchemizing into something that's truly beneficial. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
It's with like you had said, the receiving part has always been really hard for me. But you know, when I understood, and maybe this happened to you, I don't know, you can speak more to this. When I realized that receiving is giving also,
Mhm.
then somehow that was more comfortable because that's what I did growing up, right? I was like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so to make receiving more comfortable for me, I made it into a giving thing.
Yes. This is so perfect because again, I've been tuning in for the last however many hours, and I captured some of this very conversation with myself in a channeling, and it was talking about this receiving piece, and I came down to this place where I was like, because my struggle right now is the financial piece, because woo, does money have a lot of programs written into it. And I provide so much sustenance for this world, mostly unseen, but there's also plenty that's seen through my videos, through my posts. I'm offering a hell of a lot to the people that I engage with, and that especially come in closer proximity to me and get to really receive all that I provide. And so putting all of that into the world, I am struggling with the reciprocity of financial receipts in that. And I recognized this desire, and I was like, wow, if I would be so bold to say what I actually need right now is not a thank you. And I wanted to explain to people this process of thank yous online. I am so grateful for thank yous. Keep them coming, right? Don't stop saying thank you because I express what I'm about to express, because it is a part of my receiving and it fuels my creations. Now, at the same time, let's back it up and let it be really physical and time, linear space. I receive thank yous, thank yous, thank yous all day long on my Facebook feed. And I'm going back and saying thank you to your thank you because I genuinely am grateful for your thank you. Right? But I'm not necessarily allowing a kind of completion to happen. And this makes sense because the natural reciprocitous flow is actually a thank you to a thank you. It flows like a sacred figure eight that fuels itself. So it makes sense, right? And at the same time, can we allow a cycle to be completed? To just allow it to be expressed without having to provide back again. And
Yes.
if we take it out of, so this is what I realized, if I were not saying thank you to the thank yous on my Facebook feed, what I would actually be doing is creating more content. And I would be putting that and providing that to the world.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a really great insight. Yeah.
And so there are different ways for the reciprocity to actually unfold, to come into place for us to receive, but also to provide. And I'll tell you what, if there's any block to reciprocity that I currently am facing, it's that financially creates the lack of sacred figure eight. It will cut off the reciprocitous flow in the sense that there are these ideas that what we actually use our time and energy and our true value, our true soulfulness in, and it's because it's a part of our mastery and we oftentimes don't validate or see our full mastery as well, that it links into this impediment financially that you don't get to receive for that because that's just naturally what you would be doing.
Ooh.
But isn't what I most naturally do the very most valuable thing to this earthly plane? And shouldn't it be financially provided for in total reciprocity and then some?
Yes. Okay. So that makes me think something very grounded, earthly.
Give it to me, girl. You know, I live up there and down here.
Okay. So, because, I'm in practice too, right? And so there is that whole thing, right? About the financial for, the receiving for the giving. So I just set up stuff like people, I don't know if this happens with you. So people would call me or email me and say, I'd like a consult. Do you know how much time I was spending on consults?
Girl.
For $0?
Exactly.
So you know what I did? I have a website that people can book. Like, this is the big key for me. You don't even have to talk to me. You can just go online and book time with me.
Yeah.
So I started to charge for consults. Yeah. I put in my calendar online.
Got it.
15 to 20 minutes. That's all I'm giving because people will go on and on. Because I'm like you. I'm going to give it. I'm going to give
all of it.
I'm going to give it. And so I start giving them, I even give them free resources so they don't even have to connect with me. I know this. So that's how.
I'm so sorry. I have to grab a tissue. I have nothing around me and I'm nodding on myself.
Oh God, go for it. Go for it.
Whew, there we go.
Good. You know what? I think there's a difference. This is the market, right? So for me, like technically speaking, grounded 3D stuff, I have to be licensed in this province
Right.
in order for people, and people come to me with insurance, right? So that insurance requires the license. And the one marketing source I'm using right now is Psychology Today. I
Yeah.
posted myself on there. So people that come to me through there have this expectation that I'm going to do a consult for free. So I got a website. I don't know if you have this on your website. Yes, you do, where people can book time with you and they see the cost and all of that. And they
I
don't
don't.
even have to talk to you. They
I
can just,
don't have it. I don't.
oh,
I don't. And there's many reasons for this because I'm honing in on what works for me. And
ah,
I don't know what that is yet because I'm coming to find that if someone's going to step into the space with me,
yeah,
the profoundness of it
yeah,
requires alignment on both sides. So, for example,
ah,
if I say, okay, yes, a consult, someone's still stepping into the space with me. And so I'm playing around with how do I refine that space and who's allowed and allotted in? Do I take very few clients throughout the year? Because I'm walking energetically and multidimensionally with someone throughout time and space. Okay.
yes, yes,
I don't leave, I don't do even 50-minute sessions. I do untime limited sessions
yes,
because I'm about the fullness of the conversation, the fullness of the moment. Let's get all the
yeah,
juice out. I've started to even experiment with people very near and dear to me, right? That I'm willing to be in that space with 5 to 6 hours in my presence. And then their life changes. And we do follow ups where they tell me how their life is changing.
wow,
I don't know what the work looks like for me, but what I do know is that I am going to be growing a very large following. And that large following actually requires donations. Because if
what
I'm
about a
only going to allow certain
membership?
people to be in that space with me, right? That's just that kind of payment over there. Now, a lot of people are going to be receiving Tulip talks from me, post things that literally change people's lives. I get messages all the time. You've changed my life. You've changed my
Yes,
life.
yes, yes,
So if I have changed your life, then I'm welcoming people to donate in because what is the cost of, what is the price of that? It's priceless.
yes, yes.
But if you want to provide in, then you can provide in because the more you do that, the more I'm able to provide out and into the world. So I'm
Yeah.
looking really to grow a very strong YouTube following. And unfortunately, right now, unfortunately, I'm just in a big transition. I'm changing up everything I'm doing right now.
Oh God, tell me
Everything.
about that. Tell me about that.
Oh, girl. It's like every layer of my life and my business is to be reevaluated to come into a deeper level of alignment that is going to be in service to me. This doesn't look like what's in service to the rest of the world. It looks like exactly what's in service to me. And so that kind of level of foundation building
Yeah.
requires a lot. It requires a lot of inner work. It requires a lot of outer work. Right now, for example, I'm learning things like Procreate to do my YouTube videos because I am needing to learn the editing process to bring through the quality of work I want to bring through. I'm channeling in a lot of information, taking a lot of notes because ultimately I realize I'm a teacher. I've been taking the way of the coach. I can coach all day long, but I am a teacher. That is what I genuinely and really and truly am, you know? And so I am realizing now with the use of the iPad, because I'm investing in my business and I'm getting things that are going to feed back into that business. I'm taking a lot of notes and I'm creating these diagrams for consciousness. I'm showing people diagrams of dynamics and the larger structure and the personal structure. I'm showing dynamics multidimensionally. I'm drawing out creation itself and how you work with it as a creator. I'm showing people sacred geometry. I'm showing people patterns, right? And girl, I'm doing all this in the background right now. These are the things that people don't know that I'm doing, right?
Wow.
And so I'm creating. And to teach the things that I'm meant to teach is going to be more like, a large following with lots of donations. Or I may also do group work. And I'm really developing a program right now. But
Wow.
the things that catch me with programs and working on one-on-one is always the level of alignment. Literally, my energy will blast someone so far open. If they are not ready for it, it is not going to be beneficial for me, for them.
Wow.
It's not.
So, yes. So I saw a group of people that do energetics and they do readings on people and they've boiled it down for themselves. I don't know where they got this technology or if it's intuitive or whatever, but I think it's a technology. And they've decided they're not going to work with anybody that doesn't have a certain amount of or score in integrity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I thought that was so interesting. They're at the point where they are choosing who they work with. They're not even
Exactly.
opening themselves up
Yes.
to, yeah. So
And
that,
let me just say, I'm taking the big, bold move of doing that
yeah.
when you've watched my journey, because I was working on my master's degree for quite some time and I was meant to leave that degree. And I finally came to, well, destiny was just like, boo, it ain't gonna happen. So really, destiny kind of chose strongly for me in this. And so I was going to be starting my practicum, which I did. So internship, and I closed out my business, my soulful business that I've been growing, creating modalities. Ooh, the work I was doing with the people I was working with, holy moly, and
Wow.
having no idea the potency of it.
Ah,
Why? Because I'm just being me. I'm just
yes.
doing the thing that comes to me, And I had no um contrast to see what my work looked like in the world. So why did I have to start practicum and only was there for a week and I think 2 days? Is because I saw the work of other people. And as I saw the work of other people, I realized, holy fuck, what I have been creating.
Yeah.
What? Like, what?
Yes.
I needed that. I needed to close out my business, thinking that this other way was the better way, even if temporary. It was always going to be temporary, to then see that that is not the way. What you have created is 10,000 times more powerful.
Okay, so you were playing small is really,
Exactly.
yeah. I'm guilty of that too at
Woo,
times.
aren't we all?
Yes.
In a world that tells us we are small, we all play small.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And that whole education system, to make it through that and find your own sovereign way, letting go of all that programming is huge because
Huge.
that is the biggest programmer aside from the family unit.
Ooh, perfectly put.
Yeah, that conditions us to play small. I
Exactly.
mean, you know what? It's the grief that comes with understanding. I'm getting it right now that that we've been so programmed to be small, like, and that just seems so mean to me,
Mm-hmm.
by such unconscious souls, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the work that I still need to do is my anger and frustration, that if I could choose to wake up, if I could choose to see the programming and to work on myself, why can't they? Like, I'm still holding them accountable. And I know it's unrealistic because I have no control over that and blah, blah, blah. I only have control over me.
Mm-hmm.
That little wee part of me, like the small person, wants them to wake up, wake the fuck up. I'm
Yeah.
so tired. I'm so tired of them not and doing all the work for them. Ashtyn, we relate on this. Do you know what I remember? I have a memory at 18 months old, so I finally have a memory that far back.
Yeah.
And one where I was 7. So the 18-month-old story is I was in a crib in a room. The door was slightly ajar, so there was a bunch of light coming in from the door, and I'm in dark in this crib. And I even know the details of the crib. It's just unbelievable.
Wow.
And so I'm standing up in the crib, and I've been put in there obviously to go to sleep because it's nighttime, and I'm not ready to sleep. So I'm starting to communicate that. I'm starting to go, eh, and I could hear my mother outside of that door because the door's ajar, right? So I'm thinking, I can't think, I'm thinking now back, like in hindsight, as an adult, I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's the baby, here's the mother crying, and then starts to get hysterical, okay? Because the baby can hear the mother outside of the door. She knows somebody is there. And like screaming for, come and get me. I need a hug, something. I need to be seen. I need to be heard. And nobody comes. So I end up like screaming my heart out, you know, the sobbing of that baby, and so exhausted from that, and so depleted, and so like, so you know what I understood at that point? I am not lovable. If I were lovable, they would come.
Right.
But they didn't come, so I must not be lovable. Instead of knowing they don't have the capacity, the little baby just thinks, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I must not be lovable. Nobody cares about me. And I fell asleep so depleted.
Yes. Okay. So let's pause for a second, Ida, because I'm receiving so much as you're speaking. I can see the actual scene. So when people tell me things, I can actually see the.
Yes, I can see it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been here. I've been here. I've gone back all the way to my embryonic state and post my embryonic state to my multidimensional aspects of self. I've touched all the way to my source point of all of creation, like my literal.
Wow.
Right. So I've had to pass through this passageway that's very similar to your own.
Yeah.
This is actually an intensive that I offer relative to this specific thing. And so what I am picking up for you and why this light is so important is because there's actually a cord, right? And that cord is like, if you imagine the light coming through the door and you are in darkness, right? And you're like, oh, mom is here on this other side of this light, right?
Yeah.
And this is replicating the actual birth scenario,
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And because it's replicating the birth scenario, it's also replicating the umbilical cord, which that umbilical cord from us as children to our mothers, it stays, right? There's an actual energetic cord
yes.
that we have to our mothers. And so what happened in that moment was very pivotal relative to that cord. What I'm receiving is that I'm hearing that you need to consciously cut the actual cord itself. And what you can do is you can turn it back into yourself, find your very point of center, and at your very center is actually source itself. So it is actually a guiding light. It is the source. It is the original cord, right? To where the cord connects.
Yeah.
And so what you do is you cut it from the mom and specifically in this time and space in this moment through this light that's moving from the door to you in your crib. And then you move it back around and have it come directly into your center. And as it comes into your center, you witness it expanding beyond. So it hits like this globe of light that is your essence, and it expands all the way back into source itself, the light that's there. And this will start changing the energy and the flow that's been happening, which does connect into the many different things that were a part of this leading up to even this conversation here in your share, which is this anger for people not changing, not showing up.
Yes.
Because if they don't show up, I'm not lovable, is the thought, right? That's the
actual yeah.
Right? But that is an untruth. So shifting the actual umbilical cord to where it really is and its regenerative life force and source itself will allow some of those beliefs that have attached to this moment of unlovable, and also your physical, the stuff with grief, right? The stuff with grief, it's
Yes.
going to help with all of that.
Yeah.
So just be open to it collapsing all of that and shifting all of that, and for there to be immense change coming up for you.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I get to witness your work.
Thank you for giving me the space, because this is what I have trouble putting into words, right? This is an experience. People need to see the actual experience to understand it. I cannot put it in a post.
Yes, I get it. I get it. Yeah. That was so awesome. So I'm thankful that I've recorded this, because I can go back over and over again. Is that something you do with people? Do you also record?
Yes, I record and I provide audios to people, because the video process is a little bit intense when you're moving files over, but that way they can have at least the audio. The visual aspect is important in the sense that as I'm speaking to you and we're actually seeing each other, there's a whole lot that's translating through code, through telepathy. There's another layer energetically that's happening in that translation, even though we can't necessarily see it, as we're seeing the process, like you witness me and my hands are moving, my face or whatever. The actual tangibility of those codes is presented in a more amplified, expanded way. But having an audio allows you to have the link back into that moment. And so I have clients who have said, you know, that I still listen to that audio 6 months later, every couple months, so I can receive more from it, because we have layers and layers and layers. What I just shared with you, right? This is a shifting moment, but that shifting moment leads to a whole lot of layers.
Oh, for sure. For sure. That's why I think I'm going to need to listen. You know what I'm going to do? So I'm not necessarily going to watch. I'm going to plug it in by my bed, and just as I'm in a quiet space, listen.
That is perfect, because you doing that, laying in closed eyes and then reliving. So what, I do this very often. It really genuinely is time travel. It's quantum travel. So I traveled to that moment in time and space with you. That's why I could see it and I could tune into all the
that's
links,
what you're doing when you,
Right. And so when you're laying and you're being with the recording, what you can do is close your eyes and actually move. Like you can go into yourself, start at your center, because that's your essence, right? Start at your center, and then you can move your center, your essences, you throughout time and space, to that moment, to that experience, and allow the essence that I channeled in, right, to move in, but you're there consciously. You're seeing yourself move the energy, but you can also feel it in your body. You can feel it in your spirit. You can feel yourself actually traveling. Many of us are doing these things, but we don't know that we're doing them. And then when someone says, hey, this is what you're doing, they're like, oh shit, that is what I'm doing. And then you can do it more profoundly and more consciously. So this is actually quantum timeline travel to shift things, right? To modify. Like if you look at, okay, this is you, and this is this moment that happened when you were 18 months old. And then what happened was I'm just going to use my own language. It fucked up the sacred geometry. It fragmented, right? That's why we were finding fragmented pieces. That's fucked up sacred geometry. If things were in clean geometry, there's no fragmentation.
Oh, your languaging is different than mine. So in my grounded work, like, it isn't so quantum, I guess, but languaging is so important. I'm realizing that as we shift into all of these laws and things that are changing, like natural law and so I see that as trauma, right? So in my world, so trauma, that's a traumatic event for the child. and then they fragment or split off or dissociate and create another persona or be part,
Yep.
that kind of thing. So you're talking about it from a quantum energetic kind of level, right?
Exactly. Because trauma is exactly defined. Trauma is, in a more quantum way, is fragmented geometry. It's something energetically that was encoded and fragmented. So in a lot of my diagrams, I show people, look at all these non-symmetrical lines. That's the fragmentation, just like when we speak to water and we speak to water love and it comes into symmetry.
Yes.
When we speak to water hate, it goes out of symmetry.
Yes.
Energetically,
I've seen visuals of that.
Right.
Wow.
So when you're going back to this time and space, what's happening is you're actually cleaning up your geometry throughout time and space and creation, because if there's a moment back here and the geometry is off, what is it going to create? Geometry that is off, which is the adaptation. So if we look at it as trauma, right? When we have trauma, the response to that trauma becomes our adaptation that we continue to sift into the world through the ways that we engage with other people, we engage with ourselves, the thoughts and beliefs that we have, right? It becomes a behavior and a pattern. So it's because that point of creation was messy, that it was fragmented, that it becomes messy. And we have to clean it up. When we bring that sacred geometry in alignment, what's now happened? It's almost as though it never happened. I know that sounds radical as hell because we're living a human experience, and so many of us have gone through layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of trauma healing. And many people would say you can't zero it out. I know that you can. So I boldly say that you can. And the reason why I say that is because we are creation itself. Are you telling me creation itself cannot come into a full completed circle?
Oh my goodness.
As though an experience almost never even happened? If we're looking at quantum, we're looking at time and space as being fluid and flexible and everything happening simultaneously in the moment. So this is something that's even new for me in saying this so boldly, because maybe 2 weeks ago, last week maybe, I had an entire spontaneous quantum travel soul recovery moment for myself. I tried very hard to capture it on camera so I can show people this is the process. This is what it looks like to be an embodied being in my everyday world, you know? And this is what this process is like, but there's too much unseen. And when I'm in it, I can't necessarily share all of it. So it doesn't really become very capturable in a video way.
No, you know what you're talking about. It's the leap I'm trying to make in my own life. So there's the grounded, lots of people call it 3D, whatever, you know, the grounded person who works in this space because I'm not maybe attracting, or people that are coming to me are more here in the 3D. And then there's the other part of me that rides the fence, that is like is developing spiritually, but trying to define it on my own terms amidst all these spiritual communities that don't resonate. Like pieces of them do,
right?
Pieces, but I find that I struggle to communicate, and this is where I find your expression so right on. I struggle to communicate the differences that I'm experiencing with their spiritual community. And I keep talking about bypassing as one of the things I see and experience in those communities.
Yep.
And, you know, bless them all that they hear me say that. But it continues, right? Because that's where they're at. That's not where I'm at.
Yes.
And so yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Even Shanti wrote something the other day, and I thought, wow, that's what I've been trying to express. You know, that concept of unity consciousness, the one, the all.
Yes.
Well, fuck, I keep saying in those groups the same thing, and they're going to hear me because I'm going to share this with them.
Yeah.
I keep saying the same thing. my contribution as a singular soul sovereign being is my contribution to the all, the one, the whatever. I don't have to enmesh or entangle myself to be an all.
Yes. Perfectly put.
I can just be me and go inward and do my own shit. And I'm not less than or less unconscious than the all or the unity or the oneness, you know. That drives me nuts.
Yes. Okay. So there are layers to this.
I know it's like bypassing. They're all inclusive of bypassing, really, is what I see.
So what I want is, this is something I've really been wanting to speak on.
Oh, good.
Because we come through these initiations, and in those initiations, we learn certain things. So, for example, New Age was an initiation for many of us to pass through the New Age, some people say, belief systems, and come out fucking alive and well and not having lost our shit. Congratulations. You're one of them that has discernment. You know what I mean? You got through because you got discernment.
Because like an education, like you said, the educational system, that's another one.
Right, exactly. So with the New Age, bypassing is a very real thing. It's one of the largest dysfunctional themes in these spiritual communities, right? Like, I'm just going to live in high vibes and positive. Are you having a human are you gaslighting yourself right now? Because that's not been my experience nor anyone else's experience that I've ever seen having this human experience, that it's only happiness and bliss. Not possible, right? We can become more skilled in the vast array of this human experience instead, right? And then we can level up instead of dissociating away from reality. Now, with that being said, I have come into my next level, and my next level tells me exactly how powerful of a creator I am. And what that means is that when I say, oh, you can bottom out trauma, you can do that, many would think she's not grounded in reality. She's kind of bypassing in her own way, right? And this is not true. The reason why many of us are going to make those associations are because we went through the initiation of the New Age, and a next level of us understanding and having discernment is being able to separate out what is bypassing and what is actual empowerment in our creative abilities, ownership of our creative abilities. Okay. Because what I did in that experience, in this quantum experience I had, 35 minutes max. I think it was 26 on camera recording. I literally quantum traveled, grabbed this part of me up, and what spirit told me, because it was relative to an abusive relationship that I've had right now. Relationships are very in the air. We're doing a lot of clearing and cleansing because 2021 is a profound year for making beautiful relationships happen and come together. So of course this year would start out with us clearing a lot of the bullshit, right? So me doing that naturally in my process was this quantum experience. I was going back to a time and space and a part of myself that was in a very emotionally abusive relationship, and she's cowering and she's hurting and her soul has been sucked out of her body. I mean, really, I had to recover my full fucking self because I could not reach my soul. Yeah. And oh man. And so I'm having this experience, but simultaneously I'm quantum. I'm actually seeing a future moment when I'm living in this beautiful home with my future husband, who is very loving, who would never be abusive, who we're actually dancing. We're dancing in the kitchen. We're having this lightness, right? Yeah. And what I hear my guides or my higher wisdom say, when I say guides, usually it's coming from myself, but I am starting to open up to things that are not necessarily of myself in totality. And so in this experience, what I was being shown and also told is let's see if I can translate it succinctly, but it's basically, Ashtyn, you get to receive that. You get to receive this future experience being with this partner who is in alignment with your true self, with your essence, unimpeded, non-fragmented.
Wow.
In that past moment. So much so that that past moment never happened. And instead, you were with this person and this partner so that you can actually heal and grow and expand this way, not that way. It never had to be that way. It could have also been this way because that is creation. It is creative. There are endless possibilities.
Yes.
And when we're quantum and all of time and space are coalescing at the same time, I started crying immensely because I realized, coming back to earlier in our conversation about receiving, I said, holy fuck, I'm allowed to receive that. Right?
Yes.
So when we actually say, oh my God, I'm allowed to receive that, and I quantum process this experience in 35 minutes, and I'm accepting that I'm going to live a life where that never even happened. Wow. Some people would look at my actual sharing of that. They could look at it and perceive it as bypassing.
Well, you just explained why it's not.
Exactly. But let's say I don't have all of the explanation.
Okay.
The lights are going on and off, girl. It's gonna be okay. I've been flickering these lights out today, but also it's snowy outside, and I couldn't even leave this house if I couldn't get out of the driviveway because it's so muddy.
Where are you? That's another thing I don't know. Where are you located on this? Yeah. Do you believe this is a plane or a spinning ball?
Oh, it's absolutely a toroidal field, so it is totally globe. It is a globe. It is a sphere.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it is a sphere.
That's another thing that happens in the communities, right? Flat Earth versus
right.
Yeah. But can I just want to touch on something so I do want to find out where you are and what that looks like.
Yeah.
But something popped up while you were speaking there, and it's a conversation I had yesterday on film, actually, with I'm just going to say his name, Randy. And he believes so much in creation and that he's a creator, that what he does, I said, I'm so confused by you because I don't know how to establish a common meaning in the languaging of what you're creating. What was he creating yesterday? And he's so sovereign in the way that he creates. It's just whoa. He's the one who tuned me into using language. You know what he did not the other day, but so the elements table.
Yep.
Each of the minerals and whatever on there, or metals, has a scientific couple of letters.
Right.
So gold is AU. So he's starting to do things like authentic, AU capitalized, no, not abundant. What's that? Audience, my audience that's listening to me, they're the gold, AU.
Love it.
Yeah. Nice. So he's, you know what? There is some, Randy, I know you're going to listen to this. There is some very amazing shit he does. And so, gold is AG. Silver is AG. So he's like, any agreement we make, AG.
Ooh.
Silver, right?
Yeah.
So he's a real creationist, okay? But what happens for me with him is he creates these things and I'm like, I don't know what that means. It's so abstract to me that I need something concrete to get on the same meaning page. And he doesn't even care. He says to me, you don't need to know the meaning. You don't, that's what I get from him. He hasn't said that to me, but every time I say, can you give me something concrete so I can understand? Because he also says, this is the other thing that confused me. As a creator, he believes in natural and God's law. So he's created a hierarchy where he says the legal jurisdiction is the lowest, the 3D.
Mm-hmm.
The in between is common law,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is, he works in banking. So that's where they are in banking. They're in the common law jurisdiction. They're not necessarily in the legal. And they use common law language in where he is in banking. It's pretty high up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the top is God's law, natural law.
Mm-hmm.
So he believes that he's creating at that natural God's law level.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, if God is the creator of what you're doing, are you then in essence saying that you are God? Like and so how do you work with humanity and how can we be on the same page and I understand you and you understand me
Mm-hmm.
when you're creating and giving meaning to this creation that I don't understand or know what your meaning is?
Yes. This is so perfect because there's many points of integration here.
Oh, good. This is
So
more about what you do.
yes, it's how I see all of life. It's how I experience it all. So I am, as you know, I'm very grounded, but I'm also cosmic. I integrate it all. And I work very intensely with earth energy as a creator because earth energy is tangible. It's actually producing it into the tangible world. And the physical, exactly, form. So it's defined and it's also condensed to matter. Condensed. So think energy whoop, out here. Okay. How powerful is it when we condense it?
Yes.
Really fucking powerful. So, for example, with wanting an explanation behind something, Randy is correct. You don't need an explanation. And if he were willing to provide it, it would make it more tangible. It would make it more solid. It would make it more condensed. And then the power of it amplifies.
Oh,
You see?
that's interesting.
Yes. The other thing is when you're talking about, okay, so then if you're creating at that level, does that make you a god? Yes, because we are creation itself. I don't really refer to it as God, right? But we are literally all creation. So we are all literally God in motion. And it's like, but how are you going to choose to use your godliness? How are you going to direct it? This is what it is to be a conscious creator. Because if you're creating from fragmented stuff back here, that's not conscious. And now what are you creating into this world? So when I use the word divine, what I mean by divine is aligned. Unconscious creation is not it's not necessarily of God in the sense that it's not aligned to the divine, to the natural laws of this universe. It's not in service to the benevolent whole, And so something that I've had to move through myself, and I continue to, is integration of my humanity with my divinity. So this is what it is when we ask yourself, well, does that make me God? Can you be God? And if you can, what kind of level of healing work are you going to need to do in order to allow your human with all of the programming that tells us that we cannot be that big and we cannot create these kind of things?
And what if you're still fragmented?
Right.
Like you said, what if you're still fragmented, but you're saying you're God, like you haven't integrated?
Boom.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. Dangerous. Very, very, very,
I think that's what I'm picking up. Like, I need to understand. That's what I need. Is it coming from a fragmented person or is it coming from a whole person?
Exactly. And this is why some of my work more recently to put out into the world is to showcase to people what I refer to as pure form.
That's what you mean by pure form.
Yes.
Ba-ching.
Pure form is many things, but pure form is the alignment. It is like if you start really coming into your experience, you're like, oh shit, I'm an angel. Like for real, I'm an angel walking around this earthly plane. You can sense your sacred geometry because you've done enough of the work now that it is coming into and is in divine right alignment, which makes you a pure form creator, which you can consciously then create into the world, right, from pure form. So when I'm trying to describe to people what pure form is, and I'm trying to showcase them in my life through myself, this is what pure form looks like. I'm doing so that people can start to be able to decipher between what is pure form and what isn't pure form. Because do you want to be in the space of someone who believes in their own godliness that is not creating through pure form? Fuck no, stay far away from that. But what you do want is you want to be in the presence of someone who genuinely is creating from pure form, because all that pure form that they're creating, you are in a shared relational container with them now.
I know. This is what I wow. This is what I intuitively feel inside of me, but I don't have the words for it like you do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say it, it's like, yes, that's exactly. I find Shanti has that too in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a boom, boom, boom. It's like the inner knowing and the expression of it. Yep. So thank you for that, Ashtyn.
You're so welcome.
Wow. Okay, can we get to the locational stuff about where, totally. What, so you sold your house in Virginia, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and then what?
Yeah, so so magically, because life is just, it provides when you're in alignment. My parents just so happened to have sold their suburban home to get a tiny house by the bay. But both of them, this is their retirement home, but both of them are still working out their last year. And this home is a distance from where they both work. And so, and the other thing is it's not winterized. So I have no running water. So I have heat, I have electricity, all that, but I do not have running water. And that's not something that they necessarily would want to like be living in. But for me, it's absolutely ideal. Oh my God. Let me tell you the ways this is so ideal. So I am shifting into a nomadic lifestyle, which is a big deal for someone who has been so utterly rooted. We could do a whole talk on my journey of being rooted and then uprooting. Wow. And why it matters for humanity and otherwise. I think I did put out a video relative to that. And so I am moving into a nomadic lifestyle because I am meant to do really profound grid line work for Gaia. So Gaia, I say Gaia, Mother Earth. And she has been attuning my literal physical body, mesomatically, so that I can feel her energetic lines. And when I walk this earthly plane, I am actually embedding new grids. So literally where my feet touch, it's like pure form, like an angel literally walking the heavenly plane. It is cleaning up the grid below our feet to create sacred geometry there. So when other people walk it, they are walking in more sacred geometry. And simultaneously, everything that's below is also above. And so I also work with the grid system that is all around Earth, but this is many multi-layers because there are dimensional layers, there are layers and layers and layers of these networks. So I work with all of them. So this house is placed on a very sacred point. Oh. It's in a bay, and if you look at it on a map, you would just know it's a sacred point. Wow. Right? Wow. And so it's incredible to me that I just so happen to be allotted this time and space where I'm shifting my entire business. I left my degree. I sold my home. I'm choosing to go nomadic, right? I'm choosing to shift my business nomadic. Because I'm going to be having very conscious, authentic conversations with creators, with new paradigm people, because we are meant to create through community now. Watch the trajectory, right? How many of us have been in isolation for how long? It was needed. It was necessary. It had to happen that way. But the doorways are opening now for community engagement because we are the future. We are the way that money is going to be going. Literally, money is going to be non-integrity structures and businesses will fall. Why? Because they're misaligned. They do not have actual foundation to rest on. And so those of us who have been investing and have been creating that kind of foundation are going to naturally have money start sifting in our direction. So with that, I want to provide all of my community, all the people who have been investing with financial abundance, including myself. And I want to do that by showcasing to the world what it looks like when two creators come together in very genuine, authentic conversation, exactly what we're doing right now. Like, I literally would just chop it up with you. We would literally have this same conversation and have no one's watching it. You know, this is our real life. This isn't even like coming onto a podcast and being like, we have this designated thing and like this is what it's gonna be like, you know, like, no, we are engaging in the moment from the jump of this conversation, which is why I love this style rather than someone asking me on their podcast, because my style is this style that you're offering. Right?
Yeah.
And this is too what I want to offer to the world. But while I'm traveling around, living in a van, going to sacred sites, touching my feet onto all the natural elements. And as I'm doing that, I'm creating a grid line energetically in the soil, also grid line points and things that are happening in our atmosphere, cleaning all that up. I'm bringing communities together. And think about that when everything's in alignment. What kind of communities do you bring together? The right communities. I'm bringing people together that I know are meant to know each other. That's how it's been my whole life. I naturally do that. I know when someone's supposed to know each other. The only people I've ever said, oh yeah, the two of you should date, they're both married with kids. Like, I know these things, right? And so that essence then comes through my travels in these groups of people that start to be connected. And I want to create a network for the new paradigm builders, and also for those people who are moving in that trajectory of new earth, right? I refer to it as new earth. To be able to be linked with new paradigm creators, because this is the wave of the future. And so I'm creating the networks relationally. I'm creating the networks through our humanity, because it's through authentic, genuine relating, which translates energetically and otherwise in very profound ways. And I'm creating the networks in the actual energetic grid system, both in natural elements and of the cosmos. And so this is like a very transitionary period in my life, in which case this house is fucking perfect. One, the grid line point. Also, because I don't have running water, it's perfect because van life, you need to learn about conserving water and how much water do you need. For example, I have to know the containers in my van, how much I want them to hold per water. And right now I'm using a container system that my dad set up because he works for a water company. He has these containers in the bathroom that he let a hose in from into the toilet, that I can turn this pump on and I can have water only to flush the toilet. And what's happening is I'm paying attention to the exact amount of water I'm using, even just from flushing. Right? Wow. I'm also like, okay, what would it be like if I don't have a shower in my van? Because I don't have a shower to actually use here, right? So like I'm taking like baths on the stove. Like I'm heating up some water and taking some sponge baths, you know? And so these are things that actually for me are not an inconvenience at all. They're absolutely aligned with the information that I need to learn to know to invest in doing my van conversion.
Wow. Do you have, I guess you're doing lots of research, because you can have a shower system with a van. Yeah. So something that came up to me that was really shaking my roots while you were talking about walking on the earth and cleaning up and creating grid lines, and for what's happening underneath there. I don't know if you feel the same way, but there's a bunch of children apparently under there. And so when you said you were walking on the earth and cleaning and creating, I just, my heart.
Thank you so much for that, Ida. I needed that piece. I had not made that connection, and now I can travel it because I have the link, because you provided that missing piece. I have done such immense work around the neglected, abused child. So much I remember being in a relationship and my partner at the time could not understand the immensity of what I was actually feeling at all. I would have to leave my house and go in my car and go park in a parking lot and literally scream at the top of my lungs, wailing in absolute agony, sometimes for a couple hours, because I was literally feeling the entire collective consciousness of every neglected child that has ever walked this earth plane. And I say that in all full honesty. That is literally the degree to which I was feeling it. And so, when we get down into these layers, right, under the ground of these children, we're not only talking about a neglected child, we're talking about immensely abused, soul sucked pedophilia, the worst of the fucking worst. And this is not just like the worst of the worst on earth. That actual essence is the worst of the worst in the galactics. That's what it is. That is the dirtiest, muckiest of all, right? And so I just so deeply appreciate you providing me that missing piece, because as I now walk, I walk knowing that not only am I healing the soil, but that is another link to how I'm healing it, that I'm actually providing for these children. And there are commitments that I've made in my own healing process. When the pain was so big, and it wasn't because the pain was so big, it's just that the pain being so big was informative and I could feel it and I was so closely related to it, that I have chosen to make commitments and I uphold my commitments. One of those was that I would provide for the neglected children of this world, that I would offer healing in such an immense way that they would know life again, right? There are other commitments I've made, for example, like getting out of a very narcissistically abusive relationship, and I would help people who are moving through that. I would help mostly empaths. And that's just a natural kind of way about it, right? A lot of empaths, that's a part of their initiation and they get sucked into that experience.
Been there already.
Right? Yeah. It's like, that's one of my parts of my story where I'm like, that cliche empath narcissist initiation. I've been there.
You know what? I didn't even know. Yeah, in my journey, I didn't know that was a thing. But working in a prison, right? Because I worked in the prison with females and males. So I had the experience of like the differences and the similarities. Talk about narcissists and talk about being. I went into the jail, like there is a part of me I feel like is still very naive and still believes in the best, of humanity. And I went into the jail 6 years ago, like yodi yodi yo, I'm here to help these marginalized,
Yeah.
unprivileged souls. And they could spot me a mile away.
Ooh.
They could feel me, man.
Yeah.
And do you know, it got to the point that I understood I was battling for my inner kind of child, because that's how I was seeing them, right?
Mm-hmm.
As wounded children that were traumatized, that this is the way they coped and figured out how to survive with their traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's a legit thing that I didn't know when I walked in there. There's a legit thing of their third eye or their pineal gland or whatever being so calcified, or it not even like existing. Some of them I think maybe even born without that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then not understanding the galactic side either, because you know what happened a couple of times in there, Ashtyn, that was so disarming.
Mm-hmm.
I saw eyes change.
Yep.
So
oh my God.
from,
Can we pause for just a moment? Because I have to be
yeah,
so fucking bad, Ida, and I want to stay in tune with the conversation. So if you can hold what you're.
yeah,
Okay,
go,
perfect.
go.
Thank you.
Love you. Hi, everybody. Drinking my water while Ashtyn goes to the washroom. I was zoning out a bit, thinking about that experience of being in the prison. That I think I haven't expressed how profoundly that experience in the prison changed me for a better way, and how it also sent me into the depths of hell for 2 years afterward, and did a lot of work, did a lot of grieving, because I was in touch with a part of humanity that I hadn't really allowed, or hadn't the depth of that experience with humanity. And yeah, so I was completely traumatized after. And yeah, so I'm talking about how that experience of working in the prison traumatized me,
Yeah.
and the amount of grief work I did for about 2 years of
Yeah.
just spending days lying in bed, crying and rocking and ugh. But so I did, that was the first time I had an experience with human traffickers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not knowing when I was there, really, like it didn't fully embody that, wow, that person was a human trafficker. They started out as a drug trafficker, got to know them, helped them because of the stories they were telling me that captured me. Like, you know, I think I discussed it in other videos, but it was pretty profound, and saw their eyes change from, the pupils went like this, and the color changed. It actually changed to like a golden amber color. And I even
Mm-hmm.
called them out on it, because I didn't know if they knew that this was who they were or what was happening. I still don't know. Do they know this is happening to them? Is there a consciousness there? I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
But
No, there is. There is. For sure.
okay. So I said, what's going on? The first time I was just like frozen, the
Yeah.
defense mechanism
Yeah.
freeze. Like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Somebody said, oh, that's a shapeshifter that I know, but I don't know anything about that. I didn't back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second time it happened, I was like, what the hell is going on with your eyes?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, the color's changing and they're doing this. And you know what they said to me? And this is when I just, there was a smile, like a glint, like,
Yes. Yep. I've been
and
there.
they said, wow. They said, that's happiness. I'm totally like happy. And I just thought to myself, yeah, now that I know, like in hindsight, they were happy because they knew they had groomed me to such a point that that, what's the word? Not belong, but that
Mm-hmm. Yes.
that I was willing to overlook those things. They had groomed me to that point, and
Yes.
I allowed it. I permitted it, right? That's my responsibility.
Yeah.
But I was so damaged, and my
Oh
father had
my God, of
just
course.
died. My
Yes.
father had just died, and there was like dynamics of my dad, like the abusive dad, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's exactly how it all kind of got in. Oh my God, there's so much to this. Okay. So the there's so many layers to this. The
Wow.
eyes shifting is I'm integrative, so I'm in many different spectrums right now. So it's a little hard to put it together.
Yeah.
So there's an entire spectrum of consciousness, and consciousness and unconsciousness happens just like for someone who's moving in a more benevolent nature to someone who's also moving in a more malevolent nature. So what I'm saying, and this is to come back to one of your questions, which is, do they know? Yes, some of them do know. Some
Okay.
of them do not know, because it's a
Oh,
matter of consciousness or unconsciousness. And then that also relates to how does their malevolence actually show up in the world. So with those the eyes changing, let's say lower spectrum unconscious, this could actually happen in a, the word that's coming to me for some reason is by human. That's not really the fullness of it, but it's kind of like that. So what could happen, for example, is someone has a traumatic moment when they are younger, and that traumatic moment creates that fragmentation. And in that fragmentation, there comes a point of some kind of agreement. Right. So there are these beings, you know, beings are everywhere, you know, both of benevolence and malevolence. And there are ones that lurk and wait, especially for light bodies, right? Because they're feeders. They're feeding off that light. So they will wait, even in non-physical form, around a light body for one of these moments, these traumatic moments to happen. Sometimes they even orchestrate the traumatic moment happening because they leak into someone else's consciousness that's in physical proximity to you in order to tap you, to make the fragmentation happen, so that you then you agree for them to come in through the fragmentation that just happened. So in that, we always have to give our agreement. And this is a little tricky because if you're a baby giving your agreement, what kind of agreement are you actually giving, right? That gets very tricky out there. But ultimately, the agreement piece is really to just remind us of our own empowerment, that we get to shift that because we agreed to it, right? Yes. And so there could be a person who had a traumatic moment, and there was this entity that was waiting over its light body, and then boom, entered into their physical space. So what I'm saying is that non-physical beings know the power of this earth plane, because remember what we were talking about earlier, the physical earth plane condenses energy down. Yes. That is very powerful. This is the gold. This is the nectar. Okay. And so non-embodied beings will try to get that nectar. And so they will enter into a person through a trauma, and they can actually show themselves through the eyes. Why? Because they are taking up soul space. They are literally infiltrating into the soul space and the body space, right? And so they can shift another person's eyes because the eyes are the soul. They're pathways to the soul. Yeah. And so think about that, what that actually means as a reverberation in physical time and space, including this exact situation that you're talking about. Imagine, and I channeled this a few days ago. You're so tuned into many of my recent channelings. So the snake eyes, you know how it'll do like the hypnotic kind of, like think of cartoons. They show a snake's eyes, and the snake's eyes start doing like a spirally thing to pull you in. Oh yes, like hypnotic. Yeah. And so this is actually a replication of reptilian essence coming through the eyes, which are of the soul, in order to deceive. And it happens in our interactions with people, right, that are of a non-benevolent nature. So this can happen with someone, and I've experienced this, the greatest grief that I've ever experienced in all of my life. I've experienced quite a bit of grief in my life, was related to someone that I loved wholeheartedly, who is no doubt a benevolent being and is a badass in the galactics. The level of work that he does in the galactics for all is, it's just very profound, deeply meaningful. It's just huge contribution, right? But the thing about it is that he also came into this lifetime with galactic trauma because of all that amazing work that he was doing out there. And that galactic trauma, when we come into a condensed earth state, is going to show itself. And so what happened was, in that ended up forming into early on traumatic moments in his life here. And then that came into a relational space with me, where the entities that came into his body and being, because there was war. I'm going to go through this just a little bit, just as a side note for anyone who might have a point of relation. My partner was Lyran, very Lyran. And the Lyrans, their planet was destroyed by reptilian beings. Oh yeah, is that Lyrian with a Y-L-Y-R? Yeah, okay. And so, of course, he's still battling the battle of when the reptilians took his home, took over his home, destroyed
Wow.
his home. Well, what is his
Yeah.
home right now on earth? His physical body.
Yes.
So they're
Oh,
invading. So there's kind of like this repetitive, right, point of creation that's happening. And it came to his early on experiences in this lifetime. And then me in relationship to him would be, oh my God, this amazing, heart-centered, benevolent powerhouse of a being. And then shift, I gotcha. Right? The I got you moment that you
yes.
experience.
That's what I,
They're like,
yeah.
oh, you're close and you agree and you would overlook because you love this so much, or you care this much, or you something, 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 right? Well, I got her in the hook. I got that goodness
Yes.
hooked.
Yes.
And then when it knows that, it will shift. And what will happen is in my relationship to him, his eyes would shift. He was no longer the him that I knew to be him at his essence.
How scary for you.
It would
Like the
happen
fear. Oh, and
all
the
the time.
sadness. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I could go to sleep at night and he would be him, and I would wake up the next morning and he would not. And I loved him wholeheartedly.
Did he know it was happening to him? Like, did he know that that was happening?
So he did and he didn't. I had to really, I went through an entire initiation, started channeling stuff about dissociation simultaneously. I was in my degree program and I started doing more research about dissociation from a psychological perspective. And I started making a lot of the links myself. And then I started presenting him the information, which he was willing to receive. But the thing is how much space, it depends on the spectrum, how much space is he allotting for his true essence and how much is he not allotting to his true essence. So when it would tip the scale, he would not, he could have,
Oh,
we could have gone through literal years of him investigating the depth of all of this and doing deep healing work on it and being aware of it. But if it would tip that scale, suddenly none of that ever happened.
it like totally, oh my, that's dissociation at a huge, yeah,
Exactly.
level.
Huge, huge. So
Oh,
I learned about entity possession many different ways, but from that relationship more than anything, more than anything.
I love that you, I don't want, I'm the word that's coming up is used, but it's the wrong word. I love that you immerse yourself in every experience you have and you do the work to like sort it all out for yourself on so many different levels. Like, you know what? That I just, you are a courageous woman.
Thank
Like,
you.
I
Thank
love that because it's a recognition that I don't utilize or immerse totally in everything. I that my path is I guess I'm choosing which ones to put my energy into because you know the other thing that's happening for me is this container is finite. I know the being inside of it is infinite.
Mhm.
But this container, my energy is becoming so, I mean, maybe this is happening to you too. I don't know. My energy is becoming so more finite and there's less of it that I really don't, I'm really having to choose. Oh, this is going into you choosing who you work with. Oh my God, that's
Exactly.
what, okay.
Yep.
I'm actually having to choose, not in terms of my work, because I still accept whoever comes in,
Mhm.
but in terms of what I do outside of work, my personal life, I'm
Mhm.
having to choose really carefully what I'm gonna permit myself to like process, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that's
I'm going to, let's see, hold on. I'm just getting the sense that I want to somehow shift a little bit of the perspective in there, in that, like putting, how do I verbalize this? Offering an entry of alignment rather than lack of energy, because that is going to attune more to scarcity, even
yeah,
if it's true that it's limited, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
instead of having that thread there of scarcity, that it's limited, it's more like alignment. I choose very directed where my limited energy goes, because the more profoundly I choose, the more it produces, which is actually not scarcity, it's abundance.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that so? The other thing that you wrote the other day that on one of your posts that really whoop, was not viewing people, like looking at the resilience piece and not and shifting the perspective of, I'm going to work with the seeing them as powerful rather than fragile or broken or whatever. And I loved that. That just hit me like, yes,
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me that it hit you, because that's something that I really received. I want to say, I'm going to put it in these words, in my own words. I received that from Shanti's consciousness,
ah
because she didn't necessarily teach that directly, but she did. She did. But I received more of it from the embodiment and the consciousness that she's tuned into, right? So like when I work
yes.
with any kind of mentor or teacher, I'm expanding into a much larger container than what's expressed. And so this really comes from Shanti's embodiment. And because you resonate with her work as well, it makes so much sense to me that it would touch you and drop,
Man, my life changed so dramatically from that. And I can say it as many times as I want. I use lots of her quotes. I talk about her because it was so profound for me.
Mhm.
So my dear, I'm looking at our time and I have to pick something up at 3 o'clock my
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to close off with in terms of our sharing today? Is there something that you feel like you haven't expressed or you want to express? Whatever it is, feel so inclined if called to.
Well, I mean, one, I just want to thank you so much, Ida, for this amazing conversation, and
I love you. I love you. I love you.
also for showing up in the way that you show up, because it allows me to show up in my fullness, right? Like this conversational style is
Yeah.
really my jam, and it's rare. It's really rather rare right now, and so I just really
Ooh,
want to say thank you for that, for facilitating that.
yeah.
Of course, I want to encourage people to follow my work. So to find me on all of social, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and just a heads up, because clearly I've said in this conversation, I'm in a big transitionary period. My YouTube might not be so active right now, but there's a whole hell of a lot of content that's going to be coming. So like, feel free to subscribe and click notifications and just kind of be patient while I blow the fuck up. Honestly. And then, if people are really feeling resonant with what I'm putting into the world, and I do want to put it out there, please don't find me if you don't feel resonant, right? Like, please don't add me if you don't feel fully fucking resonant, because my space is of a pure form container, right? What is in that space matters. That includes my social media connections. And if it's not refined as fuck, I don't want it. So I'm putting out the offering for anyone who wants to step into that space, to step into it fully aligned with me, meeting me there. And then, of course, if you then feel resonant with the work as you follow it, also feel free to donate for the precious, energy, time, and attention, value, and every bit of goodness that I put into this world, because I am working on receiving, and, investing into new paradigm creators is also to invest in new earth. And I'm about it. So if you are also about it, then feel free to do that. That's kind of where I wanted to, that's the only thread that I want to throw in there, because exactly in alignment with our earlier portion of this conversation is my stepping into a space to fluidly communicate the invitation of people showing up for me in the work that I put into the world, financially and otherwise, is something I'm working through. And so for me to conclude it for myself, that is the only thing that I really wanted to end on. And so isn't it such a podcasty kind of thing? You know what I mean? But it's exactly what I need for myself in this moment, in my integration process, in my healing, and in my choosing my own embodiment.
I love that you put that out there because there's strength in all of it, you know? It's vulnerability, but it's strength. It's saying, "Hey, this is what I need," coming from a place, of your pure form.
Mhm,
So to me, I love that. And if there's anything I can do to move that forward for you in
mhm.
terms of sharing ideas, connecting you with people, networking that, let me know. And can they find you under this name, Ashtyn Tulip Campbell? Is that how you're labeled in YouTube and everywhere else?
Yeah. So Ashtyn Tulip Campbell is my name on Facebook. Ashtyn.tulip is my Instagram handle.
Okay.
On YouTube, I am still feeling into my channel name because it's a big decision to make because it's going to stick with me for quite some time. So I haven't fully settled on that. But on all of my social media, as far as Instagram and Facebook, I have a link tree, and so anyone can find my YouTube channel through there, and as well as my website if interested in working with me.
Yeah. What is the name of your website? Is it True Self Embodiment? What is it?
It's trueselfembodied.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. So we've got it all out there and we're going to leave it to the universe to send it wherever it
Yeah.
goes, right?
Let that universe provide.
Yeah. So, Ashton, I love you so much.
That's sweet.
It's been such a neat experience to like see you now and feel you, the double whammy. And here's to more. That's what I have to say. Here's
Yes.
to more.
Yes. I mean, honestly, Ida, if you would ever want to have more of an ongoing conversation, I'm super open to it. Also, a part of something that I'm building is Conversations with Friends, which is going to be a series, well, mini series on my YouTube channel with different people that I'm closely connected with and have just profound and again authentic genuine conversations, with people that I love and care
The
for.
AU, the gold.
Yeah, that gold. Get that gold. And so, yeah, I would love to also have you be a part of that because I think that, just continuing the conversation with you is really beneficial, not just to like ourselves, but of course for every other person who spends time with us.
Yes, and there's just one more question about your work.
Yeah.
Do you also step into, I know it sounds like you do, but in a clearly defined way, do you do past life regressions?
So no, that's not the focus of my work. It's
Okay.
not that I can't tune into past lives, but it's definitely not the focus of my work. So right now where my work is really focused is mostly on my intensives. My intensives are one-on-one, untime limited sessions. They're teachings. And I really tune into that person. I take them through the journey of the teaching relative to themselves, which is why they're one-on-one. The reason why I'm also offering just these one-on-ones is because in order to get through the gauntlet, if you're going to work with me long term, you have to start with an intensive because we need to know how we work together. And
Yes.
then we can choose to potentially move forward in a more ongoing, intimate way. And so, relative to my work, if I were to section some of it out, right, certainly integration. And integration is not something that I can just succinctly explain because it's not synced itself, it's webbed. And so, really, that thread has shown itself throughout our conversation. What does integration mean for me? And
Yes.
how do I link it? And how do I link it to someone else in my space, right? Um, and really integration in my work is to bring together the energetic conglomerate of the soul. And so this is also where I say why I call my business True Self Embodied is because I'm really inviting myself as a seer to witness other people in their innermost essence. And then I'm also guiding them into meeting and seeing and feeling and experiencing and consciously creating through their innermost essence. So when we talk about the innermost essence, we're also talking about reclaiming every single fragmented aspect of ourself as well as
Wow.
every multidimensional aspect of ourself and
Yeah.
bringing that all together so that we can show up in our most powerful nature. So any of the intensives that I do, even if they have different topics, right? Like divine feminine initiation, that's a big chunk of my work, or working with an empath, right? But even though those intensives are titled to different things and they meet different maybe populations of people, ultimately it all comes back to embodying more of your true self, embodying more.
Well, I certainly experienced you that way, and I experienced that with you for myself. So it's all good. I love you.
I love you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and being with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Ida. I love you, love you, love you.
Take care. I love you. Bye.